Hi guys, and welcome. Excuse the mess, I'm still obviously in the middle of moving. Now, a little while ago I did my first general vlog. This isn't the follow-up to that, but I did point out that I want to start doing quasi-book reviews, book vlogs when I finish reading, especially when I finish reading books that I enjoy. And to be honest, I think I'm not going to do it every time I finish a book, but I'm going to do it when I really, really like a book, or if I really dislike a book. Not because I'm, but more so I can do recommendations for or against. If it's something that I just generally have no real feeling about, I probably won't focus on it. But who knows, maybe I'll read enough that or have enough time to record that I wind up doing those books too. So in the meantime, I just finished Michael Crichton's Latitudes. I picked this up a long time ago actually, but I only just read it because, like most good readers, I wind up buying more books than I ever wind up reading, mostly because I have a to-read pile that is now 3 times as tall as me, and either way. So I picked it up a long time ago, but it was, if you watch any of my videos, you know that I'm actually really hyped for the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And that trailer is what reminded me that I own this book. So I finally was like, you know what, I need to make the time, and I picked it up and I read it. It is the first Crichton book that I've ever finished. To be fair, I haven't tried other ones yet. If you're unaware, Michael Crichton is probably best known. He's got lots and lots of very, very popular novels, but he's probably best known for Jurassic Park and Westworld now. A lot of his work is made into movies, both before and after he's passed away. This one is the first one I've managed to finish. I tried reading Jurassic Park much at Lindsay's, my wife's, insistence, but I just couldn't get into it at the time. It's not that I particularly disliked it, there was just a lot to it that didn't hold with me, that didn't draw me in, and I didn't even actually get as far as all the chaos of the dinosaurs. Funnily enough, I got as far as them getting to the park and explaining how they made the dinosaurs before I wound up putting it down. This one, on the other hand, I couldn't put down. I finished it pretty quickly, and it's not a light read, to be honest. It follows a privateer, Charles Hunter, who I meant to look up, because the way it's written, I feel like he's a real guy, which I wouldn't be surprised considering how factual and how well researched Crichton tends to be. Whereas with Jurassic Park, I didn't. It was very. Jurassic Park was so dense because of all of the explaining genetics and explaining the science. Whereas with this, it's mostly that he's researched the history and novelized it. And there is a lot to it. Basically, it's not really about a pirate, it's about a privateer. Privateers, for lack of a better way of putting it, are pirates for hire. The nations would hire these guys to go off and do the dirty work. And it follows this captain on his voyage to try and capture a Spanish treasure ship. And all hell breaks loose for this guy. Every possible problem he can have happens. Without going into major details, you've got ship combat, you got prisons, you've got islanders, you've got sea monsters. He has sea monsters. This isn't a fantasy novel, but he has sea monsters because obviously the people of the time aren't going to recognise giant squid or whales as anything but. And it is just so well researched and so well written that it really draws you in and makes you think, of the times, and it's just marvelously good fun that way. The main character, as I said, is Charles Hunter, privateer. He manages to be honest with you, it feels very much like a more grown-up Jack Sparrow. There's less of this comedy stuff and everything else, but a lot of the character types are there in this guy. So he's not inherently a bad guy, but he is very much out for himself. He does have certain morals, but those morals are bendable. So, for example, he does second guess himself when it comes to sleeping with certain ladies, married ones. But he still does because, hey, why not? Basically, he tries not to screw his men out of treasure. He tries to, it's lots of there's a lot of Jack in there, but not necessarily all the kooky, crazy bit or anything like that. The crew are actually all a lot of the crew are fleshed out quite well. Even a lot of the ancillary characters. He makes a point early on of giving some pretty decent backstory to like 5 or 6 of the crew, but not in an overly expository way. So, for example, you've got a guy who's escaped from Africa, who's missing his tongue, and he's basically this really good sort of like, I want to say he's meant to be like a hunter tracker, who can climb really well, so he's hired on because the mission is going to involve a lot of climbing and stuff like that. You've got this French guy who is basically hired because he's a psychopath killer. The barber, who is a surgeon, is also the best sailor. It's really cool. And then you've even got the woman pretending to be a man, who was raised basically as a guy, who keeps trying to seduce the women out from under Hunter, which is a lot of fun. That's a lot of pretty funny scenes in there like that. It has its ups and downs, and obviously bear in mind, like I said, I've never finished another Crichton book, but if the films are anything to go by, I would point out that this one, without spoiling it, the ending seems a little bit different to what Crichton normally does, which I thought was a positive, because like I said, there's a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot of tension, but it feels very satisfying at the end. Lindsay, who reads Crichton a lot more than I have, one of her favourite authors in fact, has often said that as great as he is, sometimes his endings are unsatisfying, whereas I feel with Pirate Latitudes, the ending is very satisfying, well worth getting through the book. Some negatives I do have about it though. Sometimes it is a little denser than it is in the rest. Like sometimes the pacing breaks. You'll be going along quite well, and then suddenly, and you could argue it actually works for the plot. Like for lack of a better way of putting it, they're suddenly becalmed in pacing. And it really drags for a couple of pages or a couple of chapters. Another negative is very early on he introduces a couple of main characters who actually do not show up for the rest of the book until towards the very end. And you can argue it's again, there's another reason, but like maybe dropping in a couple of times with them would have helped, because at one point, like I remembered one of these characters well enough to keep track, but at one point they have this character come back, and I had to sort of I remembered, but it took me way longer than it should have. Overall, I highly recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's a good adventure. It's well researched, so it is historically accurate without getting too bogged down in explaining the history. For anyone who likes pirates and adventure and stuff like that, highly recommend it. Check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have fun, and so long.